Good morning and happy new year. I hope everyone had a relaxing and rejuvenating summer. Without a question, each of you deserved a break after everything we all experienced last year. And what a year it was. COVID-19. We tried to reopen not once, not twice, but so many times, I don't even remember. We asked people to work from home while many of us had kids who were attending virtual school at the same time. What a challenge. We had to rethink what virtual school could and should look like for our students. In the midst of all this, you get me, your new assistant superintendent, who challenged you to rethink the acceleration model with regards to tier one instruction, data analysis, and reteaching. But probably the biggest challenge to an unprecedented school year was administering a state assessment shortly after students returned to the classroom. What a year. You not only deserved a break, you earned it. Even among these seemingly unsurmountable challenges, there was so much good that happened. There were so many things to be proud of. And because of you, there are so many good things to build off of for the future. Think about it. People, you volunteered your time to hand out laptops at the height of a pandemic. School leaders and staff made sure that families had what they needed to get through the pandemic. All of us demonstrated an unprecedented amount of flexibility and generosity to one another at a time of uncertainty. Staff members risked their own health to check on students and families by making home visits. And probably the biggest personal challenge for all of us was how our home and work life blended together in a way that didn't allow for us to have the necessary mental and physical rest that we needed to be our best for those around us. The list can go on, but the message is clear. You showed up, we showed up, and I thank you for that. That is the key takeaway for me from last year. And as this quote points out, that when we go through adversity, we will always come out of it stronger and better. Not only did we just show up when supporting students, their families, and each other, we collectively showed up when it came to making an educational impact during a pandemic. I bet I know what you're thinking. Here we go again. We're about to be told we weren't good enough, that our data isn't good enough, and that it needs to improve. Yes, our attendance went down as compared to before COVID-19 shuttered us. But no, what I see, and in the middle of a global pandemic, we only went down by 8 and 15 points, respectively. Under the conditions that we were faced with, those drops in attendance could have easily been 15 to 25 percentage points greater. And with regards to achievement, the declines were even smaller. Stop and process that for a moment. In the middle of a global pandemic, at a time when we all had to up our knowledge of technology and rethink how to engage students virtually, we still only saw minimal declines. Imagine that. When you look at the one assessment that was given for 2 consecutive years, we saw a 9% decline in students in tier 1 and 2, in tier 2 and ELA K2, and we only saw an 8% decline in students in tier 1 and tier 2 and ELA 3 to 5. This is what I'm thinking. We had approximately 1,600 less students, 15%, attending consistently, probably due to the pandemic, of course, but we only saw approximately an 8 percentage point drop in the number of students scoring in tier 1 and tier 2 on ELA Aimsweb. And I'm willing to bet that those numbers would have been even smaller if we could compare our math data from before to and during the pandemic due to the intense focus on math this past year. Again, you showed up, we showed up, and in my opinion, we started to excel. Here's what I believe. When great things are necessary, great things happen. And this is what happened in the Acceleration Network during a global pandemic. Everyone knows that the pandemic undeniably showed the world. The people who have been historically marginalized by our society, people of color, and the socioeconomically disadvantaged, they were hit the hardest. These are our students and families. This pandemic created and exacerbated the many inequities we face in education. Think about it. The digital divide, access to computers and the internet, disparities in facilities such as the air ventilation, families and their economic hardships, and food scarcity, just to name a few. And with all of these challenges, and I repeat, all of these challenges that we faced, that our students and families faced, in my opinion, we didn't only show up, we showed up and started to excel. But we still have an uncomfortable reality to face. In 2019, the last time the School District of Philadelphia truly took a statewide assessment, 35% of all students in grade 3 to 8 were proficient or advanced in ELA, and 21% of all students in grades 3 to 8 were proficient or advanced in math. And both of these numbers dropped by almost 10 percentage points if you look at only our Black and Latinx students. Let's be careful and clear about how we talk about this data. This data, our absolute data, does not only look this way because of a pandemic. The data points that I reference represent where we are as a school system prior to the pandemic. These data points were created after decades and decades of neglect. Yes, I said it, neglect. But fortunately, we are charged with changing this. Regardless of the multitude of factors that have created this reality, we only have to understand three things. The factors that created the neglect are real. Yes, they are. But they only provide context. They do not define who our students are, because they are brilliant and they can succeed and thrive with our help. The MTSS triangle is the visual that I like to use when I think about what we're trying to accomplish. It should look like this, with the majority of our students in tier 1 and the least amount of our students in tier 3. However, our uncomfortable reality is that this is not true. And instead, we are living in a world that is the exact opposite. Like I said earlier, our students and families' situations are real, but they are only the context. We have to ask ourselves, why is our triangle upside down? And what do we have to do to change it? Throughout this past school year, the school leaders and the Acceleration Network have seen this visual. We started something in a pandemic. I know that some people thought I was crazy for doing this. Even some of my colleagues said they were not going to focus on instruction while we were in school virtually. I couldn't do that. I'm not wired that way. Instead, I saw an opportunity to focus on instruction like you probably couldn't do if we were in person. That opportunity was to work with school leaders and teachers to ensure that each student has access to grade level text, curriculum, standards, and instruction on a daily basis. Or in other words, focus on tier 1 instruction. It wasn't easy, and at times it wasn't pretty, but some real progress was made. And now the whole school district of Philadelphia is following our lead and focusing on the same thing, tier 1 instruction. We used our common planning time protocol as a tool to plan and support our teachers to provide grade level curriculum tasks and instruction aligned to the National Common Core standards. Then we as a network took it a step further, and we started to talk about what does it mean and what does a teacher need to ensure students are able to truly engage with grade level work when many of them are at least 2 years below grade level. These steps started with planning aligned to grade level standards, then shifted to teachers preparing scaffolded questions to build student knowledge throughout the lesson, with the ultimate goal that students engage in academic discourse and are doing the cognitive lift of the lesson instead of the teacher. For me, a lot of this way of thinking came from a couple of different places. The first, and probably the most important place, is from my belief that our students can succeed on grade level work if that is the focus of the classroom. The second is from a study that was completed in 2018 called the Opportunity Myth. The focus was to study the educational experiences of students and the impact it can have on their long-term success. What researchers found was very interesting. Most students do what was asked of them. Most students in the study spent most of their time without access to 4 key resources: grade level assignments, strong instructional practices, deep engagement, and a teacher who holds high expectations for them. The next one is probably the most disheartening finding. Students of color, those from low-income families, English language learners, and students with mild to moderate disabilities have even less access to these resources than their peers. But the study also identified something that we can build on. Greater access to these 4 resources can and does improve student achievement. Let me be clear. I do not believe the intent of this study was to bash teachers. In fact, I think it was the opposite. I think this study suggests that teachers have not been given the tools, professional development, access to high quality materials, or the time needed to help them do their job and do it well. And these are the things that will drive our commitments to you as educators. But let's continue to look deeper into this study. This study looked at approximately 900 lessons. Out of those 900 lessons, 1/3 or 295 of those lessons had used curriculum and tasks that were at the student's grade level. 1/3 of the lessons were at the student's grade level. And of that 1/3, or out of the 295 lessons out of the original 900, only 74 of those lessons were designed to have students do the thinking. Let that sit with you for a second. But let's go even deeper and see what this study uncovered for students of color, or students that look like the overwhelming majority of our students. Everyone has heard of the achievement gap between white students and Black and Latinx students. Remember, this study found that when students did have access to those 4 key resources, they can achieve. And remember, one of those 4 resources was having access to grade level assignments. Remember that. When classrooms with mainly students of color had access to grade level assignments, they performed only slightly behind classrooms with mainly white students. But classrooms with mostly students of color were 3 times more likely to not have lessons that contain grade level assignments. Let that sink in. Our uncomfortable reality is not because our students are not capable. What does this mean? It means that a shift is required, not only with what we do, but how we do it. Over the past year, the network has focused on ensuring students have access to grade level tasks aligned to the National Common Core standards, or what the district calls Tier 1 instruction. Our work around phase 1 will continue to address the required shift of the what. Don't get fooled and think just because we focused on this last year, we understand the full depth of grade level standards. We need to stay committed to learning the intricate nuances of each standard that we teach our students. The shift in the how will probably be the most dramatic shift for everyone. Going from a focus on data analysis and reteaching to a focus on starting with grade level content and strategically building in below grade level content, students will need to be successful at the on grade level work. Whether it's scaffolding in content during a lesson or intentionally pre-teaching during small group time, accelerating student learning toward proficiency can only happen by ensuring students are able to intentionally engage in grade level work. This way of thinking was put to a test in a recent study by TNTP titled Accelerate, Don't Remediate. This study focused on how to flip the triangle by accelerating learning. The study focused on more than 100,000 math classrooms and over 2 million students. There were 3 key findings at the end of the study. Students of color and those from low-income backgrounds were more likely than their peers to experience remediation, even if they had already demonstrated success on grade level content. Next, students who experienced learning acceleration struggled less and learned more than students who started at the same level but experienced remediation instead. And learning acceleration was particularly effective for students of color and those from low-income families. I get it. This work is not easy. The social context that challenges our students, families, and us is real, but is only their context, not their fate. My experiences have shown me that the only way to help our students avoid this fate, and instead to help them thrive academically, is to be overly committed to developing and supporting our teachers. It is our responsibility to make sure that our teachers are comfortable with what to teach and how to teach it, and then how to teach it efficiently and effectively. That is our job, and that is what we are going to do. I am excited that all of you are here, and I'm looking forward to learning alongside you over the next couple of days. Those of you who have experienced Acceleration Summer Summits in the past will experience something a little different this year. The focus is to replicate the experience of a teacher throughout the Common Planning Time protocol instead of providing separate, discrete professional development opportunities. The lead academic coaches, academic teacher leaders, and many of our school leaders have worked tirelessly over the last several months of the school year to create a meaningful and enjoyable experience for everyone. But before I go, I want to share a video with you titled, "It's Possible."
I want you to look at something right now. Think of some major goal you want, or maybe it's one you're already working on and you have experienced a lot of setbacks, a lot of defeats. You've experienced a lot of disappointment. Maybe you've already given up. And maybe you just need a little fire, a little encouragement to get back in the game again. Here's what I want you to look at. There are winners, there are losers, and there are people who have not discovered how to win. All they need is some coaching. All they need is some help and assistance, just a little support. All they need is some insight or a different strategy, a plan of action to make some adjustments that will open up the key to a whole new future for them, that will give them access to the unlimited power that they have within themselves. That's all that they need. So what I want you to do is think about something you want for you, that's real for you, that's important for you, that will give your life some special meaning and power. I want you to be able to say something to yourself that will enable you to maintain a level of integrity with yourself. That when you say this, even when you face tremendous setbacks, it will be a benchmark to keep you in the game, to keep you moving forward and experimenting and readjusting your strategy and your plan of action, continuously looking for ways to win. So what is that something? You got an idea you want to move on. You might not have the money. You might not have the education. You might not have the support or the resources you need. What is that something that can keep us going, that will enable us to act on our dream? What's one of those keys that will begin to help us to discover the secrets to our dream? Here's what I want you to repeat after me, please, with power and conviction. Say, it's possible. That's all I want you to do when you look at your dream. Say to yourself every day, it's possible. Say that every day to yourself, it's possible. Because what does that do? See, it begins to change your belief system. See, the way in which we operate, ladies and gentlemen, it's a manifestation of what we believe, what's possible for us. Whatever you've done up to this point, all that it really is a duplication, it's a reproduction of what you believe subconsciously that you deserve and what's possible for your life. But I'm suggesting that you operate out of a larger vision of yourself. I want you to see yourself doing what you want to do, experiencing what you want to experience, having what you want to have, doing what it is that gives your life some meaning and value. Operate out of your imagination, not your memory. Because whatever you look at where you want to go, I wanted to warn you, you will have some conversation back here after you go through the data that you've experienced in life saying you can't do it. So what you want to begin to do is ignore that inner conversation. Well, most people, ladies and gentlemen, when something happens to them, what they do is they begin to believe that that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. And they can't see the possibility of it being any different. And I'm saying that if you know anybody that had some goal, some dream, something they wanted to do, and they did it, then I'm saying that you know in your heart that if someone has done it, then you can do it. It's possible. And that if someone can make that dream become a reality, that it's possible that you can make your dream become reality. And so as you begin to look at where you want to go, beginning to embrace that, it's possible. I'm blessed and highly favored. I've got a lot going for me. I got some good stuff in me. And it's possible that I can bring my greatness out here in the universe. That I can do what I want to do. It's possible I can write my own book. I can have my own business. I can take the trip and travel around the world. It's possible. I can bounce back from adversity and reinvent my life. It's possible. Regardless of where I am, the things can get better for me. It's possible.
It can be done. It has been done. It has been done by people who operate out of their imagination and not their memory. Thank you. But before I see you in your classrooms, I have someone I want you to meet. I want to introduce you to a very special guest, Dr. Lisa Williams. She is the author of several books and the founder of EMCS. She has provided guidance for schools and school systems in the areas of anti-racist organizational development, racial equity, gender equity in STEM, leading for equity, school transformation, and culturally responsive practices. Dr. Williams has served as a subject matter expert with the U.S. Department of Education, Department of Career, Technical, and Adult Education Division related to equitable access in STEM CTE. She serves as a board president for the Restorative Response Baltimore, an organization that provides guidance and support for restorative practices and community conferences to decrease violence and create inclusive environments across the Baltimore metropolitan area. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Lisa Williams to help us kick off Summer Summit 2021.